Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi à tous. Welcome to another session of ACFO town halls, Q&As, webinars, whatever we want to call it. It's really an interaction session with you guys. My name is Danny Richard, ACFO president. We have a beautiful sun today on the backdrop of ACFO, so that's fantastic. We're doing a session today for you guys to answer some of your questions you might have regarding any topic, really, but we wanted to focus primarily on the resumption of duties, 699, COVID, and I'm assuming we're going to get a lot of questions on that. On va faire la session principalement en anglais, mais sentez-vous à l'aise de poser vos questions en français également, ça me fait plaisir d'y répondre. We had originally scheduled to have Scott Chamberlain on the broadcast with us today. Unfortunately, Scott couldn't make it because he's actually working on another committee with OCRO regarding the 699 leave. So if I may, I'll explain to you how we plan on working today. So as we normally do at ACFO, we like to use Slido. It's an easy tool. Most of you have used it before. And the way we do this is we take your questions live. So if you go on slido.com, S-L-I-D-O, either on your smartphone or your computer, whatever it is, completely free. It's going to ask you for a code, and the code you use is ACFO. ACAF, as you see on your screen right now. And I can tell, friends, that many of you have attended our broadcast before because there's already some questions on there, and we always use the same code. But hey, I like that. That is interaction. That means to show you guys are engaged. So this is how you can actually ask your questions. And really, Scott is our director of labor relations. He's our general counsel. He's a negotiator. He knows a lot of information, and there are certain things on labor relations I might not be able to answer as a president, but certainly there's a lot of stuff I can answer on my own here. So there might need to park a few questions. But before we get to the questions, I want to give you an update here, maybe some backtrack in terms of what happened with COVID. So as you know, March 16th, government takes really a lead position and says, everyone telework. There's safety at stake, health. We want to make sure that everyone is teleworking and they're playing it safe. And for the CTs, those of you that work on year-end stuff, it's a challenge. And kudos to you guys. You made it happen. We closed the year. We opened the year. Basically, I mean, it wasn't seamlessly, but we were encountering issues. But for the most part, we got the job done. And I think that speaks to the professionalism of our group, our ability to innovate, think outside the box, and get things done. And it worked well. Now, not to say that, equipment-wise, it wasn't ideal. I know at the beginning of this, a lot of you were working on a small laptop, couldn't access the network, were working off your kitchen table. And for some of you, that may still be the case. But I do acknowledge that the government's quick response allowed all of public servants to work from home. And they also introduced this other paid leave, 699. I think it's good to remind you guys that this other paid leave provision, the majority of the collective agreements have them in there. That really allows the employer, under any circumstance that they want, to allow someone other paid leave. Now, it's not as formalized as it was with the 699, but I think OCRO took the lead on this one, where OCRO said at TBS, they said, we understand that if you have kids at home, if you're taking care of other people, you may not have the best setup. Maybe you can't access the network. Maybe you can't, work on a small chair and a small desk for 7 to 8 hours a day, that you might need to take some time to deal with that. So what happened is they introduced that other paid leave, the 699, which was a great thing. And now what we're seeing here 6 months later is the employer is trying to phase that out. This is where we're not seeing eye to eye right now. So when you think about it, back in March, we had cases of COVID. We still didn't have a vaccine. We still weren't able to come back to work because we couldn't necessarily do the social distancing. And nothing much has changed. And we believe that for political reasons primarily, TBS wants to start phasing out that 699, which thankfully ACFO and all the unions are fighting against. We don't think it's the right thing to do. Now, don't get us wrong. We do know that eventually there needs to be a phase out of 699. That makes sense when there's a vaccine, when we will sell safer, but that's not the time right now, especially when we have kids going back to school. Je sais que plusieurs parmi vous, vous avez pris des décisions à savoir est-ce que j'envoie mon enfant à l'école ou non. And these are important decisions because once you lock in your decision last week or 2 weeks ago to send your kid to school or not, you can't necessarily change that decision. So there's a lot of questions that we've been receiving at ACFO are, what's happening with 699? Do I have to return to work? What about my equipment? I don't have all the equipment. So let me tell you where we stand as of today. I mentioned before the reason Scott Chamberlain couldn't be here today is because he's actually discussing now with the employer our approach to this other paid leave. Because what the employer is proposing, and you can actually read this letter that we sent to Jean-Yves Duclos, who's the president of the Treasury Board, Christian Freeland, who's on the chair of the COVID-19 committee, Bill Blair, who's public safety, and Patty Hajut, who's on the Minister of Health. We sent them a letter along with other unions saying that what you are proposing right now is really does not make any sense. One of the things they're proposing is to qualify for 699, you would need a doctor's note. The last thing we want during a pandemic is people going to a doctor to say, you know, I'm immunocompromised or someone in my family is, and therefore I need a doctor's note, because doctors don't want to be giving out these notes right now. They're already stressed out with what's happening in the healthcare system, that asking people to do that wouldn't work. They're also saying that if for some reason, I'll give an example here. If your child goes to school and someone has a fever or starts sneezing or coughing, by default now they're going to tell everyone to quarantine and self-isolate to make sure that, you know, it doesn't spread. That doesn't mean your child is infected, but it's a precautionary measure. You as a parent would probably need to stay home if you can't find any other way around it. So the employer is saying that you would need to take family leave or sick leave in order to quarantine or isolate. And that is just fundamentally wrong. You cannot ask people to use sick leave to do what public health is asking them to do, which is to self-quarantine. You know, your sick days are meant to be taken when you are sick. You're not sick. You're quarantining, not even for yourself, but for your child. So it's just completely wrong. And you know, ACFO, we always pride ourselves on our ability to work with the employer, build relationships. But now what's happening is we have to push back because we believe the employer is fundamentally wrong on this one. And especially because we believe it's purely for political reasons. You probably heard this in the paper where the employer is saying, well, they have public servants staying at home doing nothing, which is not the case at all. I mean, the report from the parliamentary budget officer showed that the public servants were able to maintain 95% of their productivity. And that's amazing during a pandemic that no one planned for. It also showed in that report that the usage of 699 had substantially reduced to the point now that on average, it is 1 hour per employee per month. That's minimal, 1 hour per employee per month. And I think for our members specifically, we can all telework. For the majority part, we can, as long as we have proper equipment and proper access to the network. So for the 699, we're actually fighting back. If you want to see the letter that we've sent to the ministers, it is on our website right now. The first thing that shows up, you click on that news feed, you can have access to the letter. Regarding equipment, the majority of you, I'm hoping, have put in your requests for what type of equipment that you need. Now, need I remind, equipment here is your laptop, your printers, a webcam, a chair, a desk. If you need a better lighting, a carpet protector, put in your request for whatever you need to work from home. Now, you got to be understanding here that it might take some time, and the employer might say, okay, well, can we ship you your chair or whatever it is? But we're going to be teleworking for a while, friends. Until there's a vaccine that is found, it's going to be for a while. So we want to make sure that you guys are well equipped to do your work from home, because even when there is a vaccine, one thing that we've shown through this whole pandemic is that our members can telework. And there's certain people that want to take advantage of that, while others don't. Look, if you want to go back to work, I completely get it. Some people are in enclosed areas, both working from home. They don't have sufficient space, or some people just miss working from the office. Some people will say, I want to have a clear division between my home and my work. So for those of you that do want to return to the office, you should be able to do so if it's safe for you to do so. I see we're getting some questions here, so I'll stop it there for now. We'll go to Slido to start taking some questions. And again, a reminder, if you want to ask a question in English or French, slido.com, you put ACFO-ACAF, and we'll get to it. And I have other information to give you, but I really want to make sure I get to your questions because that's really the purpose of this presentation right now. Let me make it bigger because I actually can't see the questions here. Give me a second. Okay, if your child is unable to attend school due to COVID closure, will we be able to use Leave 699? It's a fantastic question. Up to this point, like right now, you are still able to use 699 in this case. However, what the employer is proposing is to remove this. So if your child were to stay home and you were to stay home to supervise them, to care for them, you would need to take out your family days or your sick days or your vacation, basically not 699. So the employer is saying right now that it shouldn't be a lot of cases, and they're right. But for the people that they need this, it makes a big difference. I will ask you this, friends. For those of you right now that are feeling pushed back or getting pushed back from your managers, from your directors regarding 699, I would encourage you to contact us for two reasons. The first one is we can see what we can do to help you word it so that they understand nothing has changed so far, maybe in the future, but right now we're still business as usual. But second, we at ACFO need concrete examples that we can bring to the higher ups. And the more examples that we have, the more of a case we can build. Because the minute that we bring something higher up, they'll say, well, can you give me an example, a real life example? Now, we don't need your name. We can keep this completely confidential. Don't get me wrong. It's better if we can actually use your real name, but we don't need to. We understand that you might not want to disclose your name. We can help you to overcome that obstacle, but then with your permission, because it's always with your permission, we can use your example and say, look, here are examples of our members trying to do the right thing and they're being penalized. You cannot penalize people for trying to do the responsible thing as Canadian citizens. Next question. I'll need to take time off to handle my child's remote learning. Will 699 be available for this? If not, are there other leave codes we can use? I think it's similar to the first question, and we might have a lot of questions like this, but I like where the line of question is going. We're starting school now. This is the school season. It starts, and it province by province is different. Heck, I'd even say city by city is different. School board by school board is different. Within the same school board, it's sometimes different. So every circumstance is unique to multiple variables. And when you're faced in deciding between my kids' well-being versus my ability to put some bread on the table here, you shouldn't have to make that choice, because I think the majority would choose their children's safety, right? So, and we're going to see more of these outbreaks, and God forbid you have to isolate and have to use 699. That's just not something we recommend. And that's why we're at opposites end here. Back in March, we applauded. I was the one that even mentioned to the employer, good job, job well done. You acted swiftly. We applaud your ability to recognize that's the right thing to do. But now, because of political pressure, they're trying to remove 699. Next question, will 699 go away if I am the one to choose not to send my child? It's the same one. I've already answered, so let's go for leave. Next one, for leave code 699, if you are experiencing mental health issues as a result of COVID, can you use this type of leave for that purpose? Yeah, this one is where it depends what the diagnosis is, right? So you are teleworking, you're self-isolating, you don't have any symptoms, but you're having mental health issues. Depending on your department's policy, some of them are asking you to take sick leave because it is an indirect consequence. You are having mental wellness issues, although it's not related to COVID. Our position is, well, clearly it's related to COVID, because if COVID didn't exist, I wouldn't be in this situation. So if you're in the situation where you're struggling, right? Look, I will tell you, for me, we've been teleworking at ACFO as well, and the lack of human contact makes it very difficult to get that basic fundamental need. And I do have concern, friends, when we're moving into the winter times, because now more people will not be able to go outside, take a walk, go to the park, play sports, will be confined to the inside. And also, because we have been in this zone now for 6 months, 7, 8 months, we've lost all of our freshness, all of our energy. Because remember, back in March, we weren't isolating. So we were able to actually isolate. because we had all that energy that was filled up, but now we're pretty much at our lowest that we've been for a while, and to lock us up now within the inside. So I suspect there are more people that will have these challenges, because I'm telling you, I'm one of them. Sometimes I'm a bit more snappier than I'm. No, I'm not snappier. No, that's a bad English word. I mean, snappier means chippier, I think. What I'm saying is I'm a bit more abrupt, is what I'm saying. So I've noticed that with my girlfriend too. We're worldwide, but that's personal thing. We can leave that for another day. But to answer your question, yes, if you're having mental health issues and your manager is saying you can't use 699, please contact us at ACFO because we can help you build that case. And look, one of the things at ACFO we can do for you, and some people don't realize this, I call it ghost writing, where some people are afraid to contact us because we don't want to get the union involved. What's going to happen? You can just let us know what's the situation, what you're recommending to respond, and we can maybe modify it a bit to make it sound sometimes less adversarial and more polite, more professional, give you some more meat to add to your argument, because you have to remember our labor relations advisors, they all have a law degree, and this is what they do for a living. So a case that might be something you've seen for the first time, they might have seen this 50, 100 times already, right? So they know what type of situations are happening. So by calling us, we can help you with that. The next question, 699 is handled differently depending on which department you work in. Does TBS Okro have a standard process flow decision tree managers should use? I like this question again. Guys, I love your questions. So earlier on, as soon as we noticed that departments were fending for themselves here, Okro has a similar, Okro is to HR what OCG is to finance, what CIOB is to IT, right? So the Office of Chief Human Resource Officer gives the guidelines, the policies at a very high level to the departments. Now, sometimes they are clearer and firmer in their decisions, and sometimes they're a bit vague. And I'll give an example of this. If you take a department like PSPC and transport, they are allowing their employees to have their non-IT equipment reimbursed to them. So a chair, a desk, up to $500. You speak to your manager, they approve it, you go out and you buy it at Staples or at Best Buy, whatever it is, and you bring it home and you submit the bill, it gets refunded. Not all departments are this way. Some departments are more not as lenient in terms of non-IT equipment. So Okro, I believe it was last week or Monday, came out with a guideline on providing employees equipment while at home, but they didn't commit to an amount or an exact setup. What they say is employees should be allowed to have access to the equipment and the furniture they need to do their job. That basically pushes down the accountability to the departments, who will interpret that differently, and even more so, your manager, how they interpret it. So I like the idea of a decision tree here, because depending on how comfortable your manager is at adapting, equipping their employees with the right equipment, at risk taking, at reading the most recent policies, and we'll see this within our own members, right? So at ACFO, you might have an FI3 reporting to an FI4, FI2 reporting to FI3, and sometimes we'll have kerfuffles between members. And we work through that. We put two different labor relations advisors, but there's a big education game. So if you feel like something was denied that should have been approved, if it doesn't make sense to you, contact us at ACFO. I want to make sure that you know what makes sense and what doesn't, right? So when you call us, we will actually tell you, you know what, we think you're right. It should be the case. And we can tell you which policy to Okro to refer to. We can tell you what wording to put in there. So I wish Okro could provide better policies sometimes. But on the other side, I do also understand that it's not their job, right? So they give overarching policies, but different departments have different priorities, different levels of complexities. Keep in mind, D&D is much more complex than Natural Resources Canada, right? I'm not saying NRCan is not complex, but D&D has much more complexities, bigger budget, and more issues. So it really depends, right? It was a good question though. Okro should hopefully give more policies like they did with 699, by the way. 699 was a firmer bullets on how it should be used. Next question. Can I use the 699 code to get time off to get tested for COVID-19? The employer is asking me to use sick leave. See, this is actually a good question. I'm not sure about the answer on this one. We're going to have to park this. I'm going to give you my opinion, but whoever asked this question, please contact us at ACFO because I can't reply to you because it's an anonymous question. If I had to guess, friends, I would recommend use 699 to get tested because, again, you're trying to do the right thing. And if the answer would be no and you have to use sick days, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised. So if I had to guess, I would say yes, you can use 699. But before you do it, especially if your manager is pushing back, contact us at ACFO because it shouldn't. First of all, it shouldn't take long, maybe an hour or two, and it's doing the right thing. Next question. Many of us are dealing with elderly parent care issues. How does 699 apply? Employer sign on this. You can use 699 to take care of family. Look, if you are taking care of someone in your home, 699 is easy. You can take that one. The challenge is if they're not living with you, right? If you have to go and visit them, take care of them, that's where 699 is more flexible and not as firm. So again, if you can build a case by saying, because I would say very easily, look, they're not living with me, but I still need to go and visit them and take care of them because they're isolating. They can't go out. They're too much at risk. You should be able to, use it an hour here or there to go 699. The whole point of 699 was, for one, you're unable to work for anything COVID related. We don't want to penalize you. So that's what it's supposed to use for. So for these cases, again, if it doesn't make sense to you, contact us at ACFO. When I say contact us, friends, if you go on our website, ACFO, just Google it. It's the first thing that actually pops up. Actually, no, there might be there's another one that's the Association des Canadiens Franco-Ontariens, but you know which one, ACFO. You go on contact us. It's a labor relations inbox. So when you write to us, it goes to our team, and someone will get back to you shortly. Actually, Joe's showing it right now. Thank you, Joe. So you go on our website, ACFO. You go on About ACFO, top right. And then you go to Contact Us. Right there, Contact Us. And there you go, Labor Relations. That is the email address that you contact us at. And that's a generic inbox. However, I can assure you, you're not going to get one of these automatic responses that says, thanks for your email, and then you don't hear from us for a week, right? I've always told this to my team. I pride ourselves on our ability to get back to our members within 24 hours. Now, I got to be careful. That doesn't mean you'll have a response within 24 hours, but you will know who is your labor relations advisor within 24 hours. And then depending on the complexity of your case, we'll get back to you with the answer to your questions. So that's the one on that. Going back to the questions, many of us are dealing with elderly parents care issues. How does yes. So we've already answered the elderly parents one. So you should be able to use 699. And if you can't, contact us. I just want to go pan through the questions quickly to see if we have a French one on there anywhere. Yes, we have one here at the bottom, Joe. I see the question is, est-ce que le DG, CFO ou la C-ministre a le droit de forcer les gens qui ont des conditions spécifiques de santé de rentrer au travail? La question, elle est pertinente. Si tu as des conditions de santé où tu es à risque, si toi tu es à risque ou que tu es quelqu'un dans ta famille qui est à risque, l'employeur ne peut pas te forcer, mais vous devez informer l'employeur que vous avez une condition médicale ou quelqu'un dans votre bulle a une condition médicale spécifique et vous pouvez aller sur le 699. Maintenant, si on vous force de revenir au travail, communiquez avec nous parce qu'encore là, c'est pas nécessairement que les gens ont de mauvaises intentions. Des fois, ils sont mal informés, ont entendu des rumeurs et nous, on prend l'information directement du bureau chef des ressources humaines. Donc, on peut vous aider sur comment écrire ça puis sur quelle politique référer votre gestionnaire. Parce qu'évidemment, si vous êtes à risque, on ne veut pas vous retourner au bureau. Écoutez, le code 699 est là pour ça. All right, going back to the top questions here in English. You've mentioned the employer is pushing to eliminate 699 and the unions are pushing back. What does this mean today? Is 699 still until further notice? Yes. So this is why it's important. This is a good question. Right now, OCRO's position has not changed. OCRO's position they gave out 6 months ago is still valid, but they're trying to change it. And as we're going through this consultation with the unions, it's difficult because the employer is under a lot of pressure to phase out the 699. But as we stand right now, your department might be trying to remove 699, but OCRO's position is the same. Now, they have mentioned that we might need to be a bit more firm, but at the core, the same principles guide, which is if you have to take some leave because of 699, it is covered under because of COVID, it is covered under 699. So that's an important distinction. When this new policy or guideline takes an effect, which could be next week, could be next month, depending on how much true consultation the employer actually does with us, until further notice, it's the same thing. However, there are rumors circulating that it's not the case. And also your department, despite what OCRO said, perhaps your department is being firmer on this 699 because they have pressure, depending on which department you're in. But again, if you feel like you're being pressured or they're asking more questions or they're denying your leave, contact us at ACFO. You shouldn't have to put yourself at risk, especially if you're being asked to come to work. Look, I can think of a handful of positions for our CT members that will require our members to physically go to the office. You should be able to stay home. I think where 699 comes in play is really for childcare. If your kids are not going to school, if you're doing home care, home education, that's where we're getting most pushback. So contact us. We can try to help you with that. Our next questions, guys, you're asking a lot of questions. Good, keep them coming. And again, I'm trying to go through as much as I can of these. Have you heard when OCRO might issue direction on the issuance of T2200, allow employees to deduct off expenditures on tax returns? Many of you are accountants, and ACFO was the first to raise this to the employer back. I wrote to Sandra Hassan, I think it was mid-April, to flag this. And this is not just for our members. This is basically for every single, not even public servant, I would say for every single Canadian citizen that is doing working from home right now. Short answer, no. And again, this is not OCRO who decides this, right? OCRO asked CRA to update their to get a position on this one, because if you go on CRA's website, they do have guidance. They also have an interpretation bulletin. Basically, what the employer says right now, actually what CRA says is, if you work more than 50% of the time from home, and your employer acknowledges that you had to work from home because they're not providing you with an office workspace, which is the case right now, you could potentially deduct office expenditures, right? So for example, your heating bill, your water bill, your internet bill, to a certain portion of how much your office space is taking in your house. Now, it's hard for us to push on this one because I know I've been telling you guys for a while, we're still waiting on CRA. But the reality is, in light of this whole COVID thing, there's more pressing matters to be resolved, right? 699 is more timely. This one is a tax deduction that we can file early next year as we're filing our taxes. And don't get me wrong, it is something that needs to get resolved. Do I think we should qualify for it? Absolutely. But it's not something we can actually force OCRO to make a decision on, because this is CRA, not as an employer, but as a guidance policy maker. So I do suspect we're going to see an update on that. And like I said, specifically because every single Canadian working from home will want to know, A, do I qualify? And B, how does this work? What can I deduct? To what portion? And just to clarify here, we're not talking thousands of dollars, right? You might get a tax credit, if I had to guess, depending on what your expenditures are, at most, probably $1,000 we're talking. But if you qualify for it, you should have it. So I apologize, I can't give you an update on that one. And another update I want to give you on the same note before I forget, friends. You know how every year the employer was allowing us to carry over whatever vacation we had over 35 days, right? So at the end of the year, basically, before Phoenix happened, if you were carrying over more than 35 vacation days, there was an automatic cash out of your vacation days. For the past 3 or actually 4 years now, the employer has waived the automatic cash out. It was only upon request. So for some of you out there, you might have 50, 100, 150 vacation days in your bank. And one of the questions we got, because we raised this with the employer as well, is, what's going to happen on March 31st, 2021? Will the employer extend the automatic cash out? Because if they don't, we're going to have a heck of a lot of people receiving a lot of checks that potentially those vacations they wanted to take. Maybe they're waiting for retirement, to early retirement. Maybe they want to have a special project after COVID. So the employer now has not confirmed if they're going to waive the automatic cash out by March 31st. We're pushing back on this one because we know a lot of you are not taking vacation because you can't go anywhere, you can't travel. Even if you could travel, you probably wouldn't. And B, you don't know right now if it's safe to do so. So for us, we wouldn't want people to be forced to take their vacation, because I know some of you probably don't know this. I did not know this before I started working for ACFO. Under the CT collective agreements for all our groups, the employer has the right to force you to take your vacation days, right? And they can start doing this right now if they wanted to. So any of you that have vacation right now, the employer could say, okay, I want you to use your vacation this year, which I know seems wrong, but they could. They rarely do it. And if they are doing it, please contact us. We can push back. I have never heard of a case where we weren't able to find an agreement on this. So I do encourage you to think of when you would schedule vacation in the event that the employer does not extend the carryover of vacation days. If I were a betting man, I believe the employer will, because if they don't, there's going to be a lot of pushback. But I also suspect they might force us to take like at least 1 or 2 weeks of vacation, because even for your mental sanity, friends, I will tell you this, tomorrow I'm taking off. I'm going to a weekend to just relax and just get my thoughts cleared up. I think all of us should be doing that right now. You need to take some time to just rebalance, refocus your energy. So I do encourage you guys to take vacation. I know not all of you can, but I just wanted to let you know that that is a possibility, and we're still waiting on a response from Okro. But you need to know that the employer could force you to take your vacation. And if they don't renew the automatic cash out, for those of you that do have more than 35 days, they might get cashed out. So more to come on that one. Next question up. Can we refuse to return to work physically if we are stressed, knowing that we are 100% functional from home? What is D&D's position on FIs for FIs returning? I'll start generic as a whole, and then I'll address the D&D specific issue. So the employer can ask you to come back to work, and they could technically force you, but I can assure you this. If you have shown that you are able to do your work from home, and the employer is forcing you to physically come back to the office, and you do not want to come back to the office, contact us at ACFO. I guarantee you, you will not go back to the office, even if you don't have a health issue. There is no point in forcing people to return to the office and risk their health when they can perform their duties from home. So if you're in the situation and your manager is forcing you, contact us. We'll walk you through it. And if need be, I'll go personally talk to your CFO. Now, going to the D&D issue. So CFO at D&D is Sherry Crosby. I've personally spoken with her. Her position, she's one of the leaders, by the way. She has said for the CT group, there's no reason to return to work. And I know not all of the CT FINs report to the CFO. You could be reporting to a commanding officer or various titles. But again, if you're able to do your work from home, you should not be forced to return to the office. So contact us if it is the case. That applies for the majority of you. Look, all the CFOs I've spoken to, there's only about 15% of employees that might need to come back to work on a part-time basis. And if you're one of those and you're okay with that, feel free to do so. But for the majority of our number, like 99% of our members will continue to work from home. An example of this that someone might need to go, if you're dealing with cabinet submissions, top secret clearance that's not accessible unless you have a specific networks. But for the most part, we're staying home, friends. Let's continue on here, friends. I am worried because my DG is threatening that people who can't work full-time due to kids will either have to reduce themselves to part-time, quit their job. Right. That is preposterous, ridiculous. I'm surprised to hear that from a DG. So thanks for that comment. If you have that in writing, please forward it to us. These are, we can't go from one extreme to the next, right? There is a talk right now that we might have to use different types of leave But to go and even mention part-time or quit, I'm stunned a DG would say that. Contact us. We need more examples, friends. The more examples we have from you, the more we can work together on this one. But the biggest issue right now is regarding 699 is child care. Some people are sending their kids at school, some aren't for various reasons, and we cannot ask people to take sick days, vacation days when they're trying to do the right thing for their circumstances. So in this case, for the DG, if you have that in writing, you probably don't, because probably something was mentioned verbally, but it needs to be clarified. So I'd be happy to go. And again, it's anonymous, right? I don't want you guys to think that once you forward it to ACFO, we'll rat you guys out and say, well, so-and-so said this. Because a DG said this, I'm assuming to many employees, I can go talk to the CFO or even this DG and say, look, I've heard apparently that there's rumors that people might be quitting their job or part-time and just that, that's not coming from Okro. So is that your CFO saying this? And I know certain people have different views. Some people believe that we shouldn't have 699. Some people are saying we're too lucky for public servants and we don't deserve 699. I'll tell you this, at ACFO, our staff, we have staff that are in the same situation. We all telework, and for our own staff, we're accommodating because it's the right thing to do. When it comes to public health and doing the right thing, we don't do a race to the bottom. We should elevate the bar for everyone. So when people look at public servants and say, that's not fair, I didn't get to use this type of leave. Well, you should. And we should fight for our rights. That's why we work collectively with the Canadian Labour Congress so that all the Canadians can have better working conditions. We all know someone in our family that works that's not necessarily unionized, not the public sector, or doesn't get the benefit, the same insurance and safeties that we have. And at ACFO, we truly believe that our priorities are our members, but our members have families and are extended, and we want to elevate the whole Canadian population to a different level, and that's why we work with their different affiliates. Let us continue on. If our office is quarantined, will we be able to use 699? Absolutely you should. If your employer is saying you cannot come to work and you have to stay home, if you're able to telework, that's fine, and you shouldn't use 699 if you can actually telework. But if you're unable to do telework for whatever reason, right? You can't access the network, your job isn't conducive to, you should be able to 699. It's the employer's responsibility to provide you with a work area where you can complete your work. If they can't provide that to you, then you shouldn't be punished for that because you're willing, capable, and able, but they're not giving you that opportunity. So 699 should stay. And friends, let me remind you, even if Okro were to remove the 699, your manager can still approve this leave from the article in your collective agreements. All of the collective agreements have an other paid leave for whatever reason they want. The question is, will your department, will your DG, your director, your manager have the capacity, the courage to say, you know what, even if 699 got removed, that's not right. You know what, we're just, my staff, they're working from home. Some of them need 699, so I'm just going to keep the other paid leave. So I know we talk about the 699 as it's unique, but there's other provisions in our collective agreement that we can take other paid leave, and I believe it's the right thing to do. I'm going to take another question in English, and then we'll see if there's other questions in French. If I normally commute via public transportation, can I use this as a reason to continue teleworking as I don't feel safe because of COVID using the bus? Yeah, of course. Again, you know your job better than anybody else. And if you're telling your boss, I can do my job from home, I don't need to be in the office, flag that to your boss. And if they're saying, well, I know you can, but I'd rather you come in the office, this is where you have to use your political skills to politely say, well, I don't feel really comfortable going because I have to use public transport, or I'm not sure about social distancing. How's it going to be in the elevators? I think I'm putting myself at risk and my family at risk. And politely push back and get the message across. But I do know, I know for a department, a manager said, I know you all are teleworking, but I would rather you all be in the office because it is easier for me to manage you when you're working from the office. And I get that, and it's true. However, you have a right as an employee to have a safe work environment, and the safest work environment right now is in your own home. So if you have the ability to work from home, if it's working well, especially if you've shown for the past 6 months it has been working well, I can guarantee you we would just go up the food chain, right? So if your manager says no, we can go see your manager's manager, boss. This happens often, friends, and that's unfortunate. There's different managers out there, and for various reasons, sometimes there's a disagreement. But I will tell you, when I have relationships with your CFOs or deputy ministers, I get their policy from the top. And when they say, I don't understand, we've issued emails, we've clarified. I said, yes, but some people misunderstand. We hear rumors. So when you guys give us information from the grassroots level, it allows us to give that feedback anonymously to the higher ups. The surveys we send you, it's the same thing, right? We need your feedback to see what's happening at the ground level, because the policy, the decision makers, the higher ups, they've been fed through the chain of command, right? And there's always a loss of information there. When we hear directly from you guys, it's not a briefing thing. We hear from you directly, so it gives us a better pulse of what's happening. So definitely, if you feel not comfortable returning to work for any reason, you definitely want to stay home and raise that. Let's see if we have, there we go, French question right here. Oh, I saw one before. Did it disappear, Joe? Let me go back. I saw one here at some point. Where did I see a French question? Or maybe I've been self-isolating for too long. There is no French question. Oh, yeah, there it is. Is 699 est une mesure de dernier recours après toute autre option possible? Doit-on choisir une option contraignante comme travailler de soir avant 699? J'aime cette question. Dans le fond, j'aime toutes vos questions. Hein. Je m'écoute depuis tantôt. J'aime toutes vos questions. OK. Oui, le 699, c'est le dernier recours. Mais qu'est-ce qu'on entend par dernier recours? Vous devez tenter de faire d'autres accommodements. C'est-à-dire, y a-t-il quelqu'un d'autre qui peut s'occuper de vos enfants? Est-ce que vous pouvez changer vos heures de travail? Par contre, vous avez une plage horaire, là. Nous, c'est 7 heures le matin à 6 heures le soir. Ça, c'est votre plage horaire. Ou c'est peut-être 6 à 6. Je me souviens plus. Il faut regarder la convention collective. Mais si on vous demande, puis je vous le dis, là, il y avait un ministère qui a dit ça. Tu peux-tu travailler après 8 heures du soir quand tes enfants seront couchés? Parce que là, tu n'auras plus d'enfants, fait que tu peux travailler. Si vous voulez faire ça, c'est correct. Je ne vous empêcherai pas. Mais ce n'est pas quelque chose que l'employeur peut vous demander. Écoutez, on a des heures de travail. On essaie de rentrer à l'intérieur de ça. On peut dire, écoutez, je commence à 7 heures, je travaille 3 heures, j'ai pris 2 heures avec mes enfants, mon conjoint prend le restant, puis je vais faire un autre. Fait que des splits, on peut le faire. Mais on doit rester à l'intérieur des heures de travail régulières. On peut les changer. Mais fait que les mesures possibles, c'est on peut s'adapter. Mais de demander à quelqu'un de travailler à 9, 10, 11 le soir, non, ça ne rentre pas dans la convention collective. Donc là, vous vous qualifierez pour le 699. Donc, c'est une très bonne distinction à faire. Let's go back on top of the question. 6, we are working from home. Can we work anywhere in Canada after informing our manager? I love your question, guys. It's a great question. Actually, this will be another thing after COVID, post-COVID, right? Can we work? If I can telework from Gatineau or Ottawa, why can't I work from Vancouver or Halifax or Regina? What difference does it make, right? If I'm teleworking, what's the difference? So to answer this question, you could right now, even prior to COVID, you could work anywhere from Canada if your manager approves it, right? Now the question is, does that trigger relocation? Will the employer cover relocation? They could, they might not. It's an option, right? This is a discussion you have with your manager, but this is not specific to COVID. I think COVID allows us to actually have a better conversation on this one. But if your manager is willing to say, you know what, you've shown your worth, it's working well, and you want to go back home with your family, and for some reason you're moving, and you want to have agreement, that's fine. But you have to keep in mind, that's always dependent on that conversation that you have with your manager, because they might give it to you for 3 months, and then they might say, well, now you want you to come back. Well, now I bought a house. How does that happen? So if you're having this dialogue with your manager, contact us at ACFO, because we want to make sure you're covered, right? Say your manager approves it, but then we want to take it away because a different manager is happening. So what would you do in that case, right? Well, I got an approval from one manager, but the other manager said, no, it wouldn't work. So it's worth having a conversation. But I think, especially for people in the regions, I think one of the good things about COVID is it allowed us to show that we can get the job done from anywhere. And I think moving forward, it will be ACFO's position that people should be able to work. I mean, I wouldn't just say anywhere in Canada. It would be anywhere in the world. And I know there's time zones and whatnot, but to me, the biggest challenge about telework is if you have someone with performance issues, it is harder to manage, in my opinion, teleworking. Also, someone who's brand new to the team, especially for a different department or from the external competitions, it's harder. I'm saying it's impossible, but it's harder. So it really depends on the manager and the employee's comfort levels, how they work together. But it's definitely worth having a conversation. Can employees be asked to work outside of core hours, if possible, if they need to be accommodated for a child, can care during the day? I answered this in French, but I'll repeat it in English because we have the question. So I'm going off memory here, friends. In your collective agreement, depending on if you're a CT-FIN or EAV or IAS, the work hours typically are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think a group is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., but that's your work hours. That means that you and your employer can discuss what times you want to work in there to do your 7.5 hours. If the employer is asking you to work after hours, they can ask. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but they can't force you to do that. They could force you to change your, so for example, if you were doing 7 to 3, the employer says, we're going to change your schedule, you're going to start at 9. They could force you, but they can't force you to say, can you work 7 to 11 in the morning? And then after you put your kids to sleep after 8 o'clock, can you log in for 2 hours to do your emails? We know some departments have tried that. Some people are doing it and they don't mind that, but you have rights as an employee within your collective agreement. So COVID does not supersede your collective agreement. So if your manager is asking you to work after 6 p.m. and you're not comfortable with that, contact us at ACFO. We have seen these cases, and we can definitely help you with that. And again, it's tough. It's tough because what if the other coworkers in your team, what if they don't mind? What if they're doing it? How will that be perceived if you're the only one that says, with all due respect, I'm flexible during work hours, but after 6, it's my family time and I'm with my family. And we tell people, if you are unable to do your work during the day for various reasons, could be you don't have the equipment, you don't have access to the network, you're caring for your children, that's what 699 is for. And you shouldn't have to make up those hours because 699 is a type of leave. That's the way it works. So if you're having those issues, please contact us at ACFO. Moving on to the next question. Can we use 699 if we're experiencing intermittent network issues? Yes, yes. You can, and you have to flag it to the employer, right? Transparency is key. You've got to get things pre-approved. You want to have a conversation with your manager. But if you cannot access your network, I remember when COVID hit, a lot of our members were told, don't access the network during the day. Go during off hours. Well, as I just mentioned, I don't want to work at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, I don't know about you, but you got to maintain your sanity here. So if you can't work during the day and you can't work offline, you can use 699, but please do not do this. I've seen this. You cannot just, for example, after a week say, oh, by the way, I took 20 hours of 699 this week. You can't say it after the fact. Always try to be as upfront as possible. Have the conversation with your manager and get it pre-approved. Think of 699 the same way when you do of overtime. You don't just say after the fact, hey, by the way, I did this overtime. Can you approve it? No, it has to be pre-approved. But have that conversation and definitely contact us if you're seeing any issues on this one. The next question we have, I am on 6. Oh, it just disappeared. Darn it. It just disappeared, but I had a chance to actually go take it. I think Maddie deleted it. Darn it. Maddie, can you pop in the question that said, I am on 699 leave, and I'll re-answer it later because I think it just disappeared. Oh, there we go. I am on 699 on Monday and do overtime to catch up on Tuesday. When I am not on 699, can I claim the overtime? Good question. Okay. We actually fought with the employer on this one. Think of 699 as sick leave. So I'll give you an example. If you were sick the morning, you wake up one morning and you're sick. You call in, you say, you know what? I'm not feeling well today. I'm taking 3 hours off and I'll call you back, see if I can come in this afternoon. So you log in 3 hours as sick. Come 11 o'clock, you're feeling better. You go in the office and you finish your afternoon. So in your day, you're going to say, well, I did 3 hours of sick and I did 4 hours regular time. So that's my day. But then your boss asks you, can you work at night? Well, that would be overtime because you've logged 3 hours of sick days You've done your regular hours, the rest, the 4 hours, and then you need to come in at night. That's overtime right there. 699 is no different. If you worked part of the day, you couldn't work for various reasons, 699. You worked a portion of the day at regular hours, and then you need to do overtime. The notion right now is that, well, we're not going to grant you overtime because you got 699. You're like double dipping. But the reason I'm not working is for valid reasons that have been approved by the department. So if that is the case and you're being denied overtime because you've claimed 699, again, I'm like a broken record here, but contact us. Now, you've got to be delicate here, friends. This is why I love our labor relations advisors. There are certain things you have the right to, but does that mean it's worth the fight? Because you have to remember, when you're fighting for your rights, which I always recommend you do in a certain way, but it's not perceived well by certain managers. So they might say, why are you pushing back? You're being adversarial. You're questioning my judgment. And what you're saying is, I only want what I think is fair, what I'm entitled to. So we'll teach you how to do that delicate dance by raising your points in a constructive manner without being adversarial. And sometimes, depending on the manager, it doesn't work out, and you have to decide, do you want to escalate? Does this matter enough to you that we need to go over your boss's head? Because how will that be perceived, right? How will your boss think when it turns out you were right and your boss is told by their director that they were wrong? It affects people's mentality. I've seen it before. So you got to make that decision. Do I want to fight this fight? I'm not saying it's not worth having a discussion, but it's not because you're right that everything will be right. So keep that in mind. Let's continue on. Again, if you have questions, go to slido.com, because I know some people joined afterwards, and you put in the code ACFO-ACAF. Since the beginning of COVID, I have been working on my kitchen table. Can we request for office materials, examples, chairs, desks? Let me be very clear on this one. Yes, request for whatever equipment you need to do your work. And if you're not sure what that is, think of your office setup. What do you have in the office building? Our position is that you should have the very same setup to do the job at home that you were doing at the office. Why? Because there's a reason you had dual monitors. The reason you had a chair, a desk, a mouse, a printer. The reason you had all of this was to perform your duties. And now, for the past 6 months and the foreseeable future, you will continue to do this. Now, I'm not saying your department or your manager will say yes, but put in the request. I will tell you, there are certain departments, look, PSBC and transport are the ones I always say. PSBC has been proactive. They made a call saying, we understand that some of you are working on your dining room table, your kitchen. Someone's working on their patio set, a patio table they brought indoors in their basement. Some of them don't have lighting. Some people say, I don't have lighting. I'm working downstairs and it's cold down there. I don't feel, can I get a heater, right? So have that dialogue with your manager, because the employer is more and more lenient. And more specifically, if you go see Okro's newest policy, they even say this. They say that the employees should be equipped. Now, it might take some time, but if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. And if you do get pushback from the employer, contact us at ACFO. We've seen many of these where someone was told, you already have a chair because you've teleworked in the past, right? Right, I did telework, but not 5 days a week. Maybe our chairs were never designed to work this much from home. Maybe my desk is not the right height. Maybe my lighting is not ideal. So I will tell you, for our staff at ACFO, I've personally told them, whatever you need to ensure you can perform your duties from home, let's make it happen. Because it's not just during COVID, even after COVID, we're going to be teleworking for those of you that want to do that and your manager's on board. So I know it's going to cost maybe a couple of thousands potentially, but that's an investment. We're going to be using this for years to come. So it's definitely worth having that conversation. Let's continue on. If a partial return to work, is the department obligated to purchase a second set of specific ergonomic equipment for me at the office, at home currently? They're not obligated. It wouldn't necessarily have to be an ergonomic chair and desk unless you have a doctor's note. So unless you have a medical note that says you actually need this, then they would need to accommodate you both at home and at work. But the general idea here, my fellow colleagues, is that you should have a mirror setup. And I know we're going to get pushback. Look, I have certain departments that said, well, that's preposterous. You know, you don't need dual monitors. You have one monitor in your smaller laptop. Yeah, but why did I have dual monitors at my office in the first place? Because it was deemed productive. You know, maybe some of you don't need printers. Maybe some of you do. Maybe some of you need copiers. Who knows? But your assessment might not be the same of your colleagues, depending on your duties, depending on your needs, depending on what's the current setup that you have. So I'll give you an example. For me at ACFO, I did get a chair, but I didn't get a desk because I already had a nice desk. So I don't need a desk. So people's needs are different depending on what circumstances they are in. So have that dialogue with your managers. Will there be mandatory self-assessments of health for employees that will come to work in offices in order to raise awareness and protect colleagues? Yeah, let me walk you through the average return to work right now. Not every department has been doing this, but let me tell you how it's being proposed. So first of all, you have to have approval before you go back to the office, right? You can't just show up there. You have a conversation with your manager. Either your manager asks you to come back or you ask your manager to come back. And again, for the majority of you here, I know I'm repeating this, but you shouldn't need to go back to work unless you want to. But say you do. You talk with your manager and they say yes, no problem. So you would go and book an office the same way you would book a conference room in Outlook. So you reserve a desk because again, you might be hoteling here. You might not be going back to your specific office because your department might have needed to reconfigure the office planning, the office floor to ensure social distancing. So you book it, you know what time you're getting there. They're going to tell you show up between 8 and 8:15 a.m., for example. You show up there, you already have a mask. If you don't have a mask, one will be provided to you. You log in at the commissionaire's office because they keep track for trace contacting of who's in and who's out. You get in line for the elevator. Most elevators have at the most 2 people. They sit at both corners. You always need to wear a mask when you're moving. You go to your office, you sit down, you can remove your mask and you do your work. The moment that you feel you cannot do social distancing, your mask comes back on. Your office, they give you like a starter kit. When you log in, you're given hand sanitizer, the stations where they are. You're given a mask if you don't have one. You're given some Lysol disinfectant so that if you wish, you don't have to, but it's recommended, you Lysol your desk that you're given. And once you're done your day, you Lysol it back up and you keep everything clean. Everything goes back, so nothing stays there. You stay at the same desk for the whole day, so you can't change desks during the day. If you need to use the washrooms, you put your mask on. When you go in the washroom, there's little indicators at the outside of the doors that tells you, you know, turn this thing on so people know how many people are in there. Because depending on the size of the washroom, they might say maximum 2 people per washroom, but you don't know unless you're in, right? So you have indicators to tell you how many people are in there right now. If you have your lunch, you can use the fridge, but they recommend you eat at your desk. You can eat at the common area if you want, but they recommend at your desk. You can interact with other people, but they recommend you keep your distance and you have your mask on. Then when you log off, you clean off your station, you Lysol your desk, you go to the commissionaire's, you sign off, and then you leave. And that's the average return to work, how it actually looks like. It might be different based on your department. But before you return to work, if you choose to do so, if you're asked to do so, you need to know what the protocol is for your office building, not just your department, but for your office building, because some office buildings have different protocols. So that's in a nutshell what it looks like. Friends, I see there's still a lot of questions here, so I'll tell you what, we'll do this for another 10 minutes, but then I got to jet because there's another meetings I need to attend to, and I'll be a bit late, but that's fine. This is important. Vu que les enfants peuvent retourner à l'école, si envoyons pas, est-ce que le code 699 pourrait être utilisé? Mon employeur dit non et faire toutes les heures. Oui, on a répondu à la question plus tôt. L'employeur tente présentement de enlever le 699. Donc, si vous voulez pas que vos enfants aient à l'école pour différentes raisons, dépendamment de votre ministère, ils vont peut-être vous dire, ben là, il faut que tu prennes des heures de maladie ou de vacances ou congés non payés. Et nous, à la CAF, on se bat contre ça présentement. On dit que si les enfants, on se bat pour les bonnes choses. Vous voulez être responsable, puis il y a diverses raisons, différentes des écoles, de la ville, c'est du cas par cas. Et c'est pas juste de dire aux gens, mais prends des journées de maladie, parce que les journées de maladie n'ont jamais été conçues pour être pris pour ce type de raisons-là. Donc, présentement, l'employeur, c'est ce qui pousse, mais ce n'est pas officiel. Donc, si votre ministère, si votre gestionnaire vous dit ça, communiquez avec nous. On a besoin de mettre l'heure juste, que présentement, rien n'a changé, mais vos ministères tentent de vous forcer ces choix-là. Ce n'est pas correct, ce n'est pas la bonne chose à faire. Donc, nous, plus on a des exemples, plus on peut vous aider, mais plus on peut dire, écoutez, là, même quand il va y avoir un cas, il va y avoir des pandémies des écoles à un moment donné. Est-ce que ça veut dire que là, on va devoir prendre des congés de maladie pour s'isoler? C'est ridicule, c'est complètement absurde. Fait que nous, on se bat avec les plus hautes instances pour s'assurer que le 699 demeure pour l'instant. How do I get an ergo assessment during COVID? Ask. Very simple, just ask. I'm not saying they're going to give it to you, but they're doing ergo assessments via video right now. So you show them your workstation, and I've seen them at work. Actually, they're doing pretty good. You need to have the manager's approval, but they are still doing ergo assessments. So just ask. What is our role as FIs to encourage and promote 699 leave for employees who need them but are not requesting them? Let me reread that. What is our role as FIs to encourage and promote 699 leave for employees who need them but are not requesting? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, the best thing you can do is raise awareness, right? I mean, if you know some people that are feeling uneasy to take 699, but they should be, I would give them as an option. I mean, I do this with my staff. I want them to know that we understand that these are difficult times. And depending on your circumstances, some people might not be able to do the same amount of work. And you need to be understanding. So we encourage it. We put it out there, but we can't force anyone to do that, right? We could just put it out there, raise awareness. That's what I would definitely recommend. And know that you mean it genuinely when they say, if they can feel free to use it. All right, let's continue on. Not COVID related. What if we still have to received our retro pay, but employer never informed you that your payment will be delayed? The majority of our members did receive the retro pay. I would encourage this specific members to contact us. I think about 5% did not receive them for various reasons. I do know that they're still looking into it to get it resolved. So on that topic, definitely contact us. We would need to know your specific case so we can raise it with the employer. Can I use 699 to visit my mother at the nursing home? And can I use 699 to get a COVID test, which is requirement to visit her? Yeah, this one would be dependent on your department. I would argue yes, but it's not clean cuts. The policy isn't very clear on this one. I would argue your employer probably would say no because you don't actually need to go there. But I get where you're coming from. So have the conversation with your manager. To me, anything COVID related that relates to taking care of family should go on their 699. But I understand how your department, your manager might not feel comfortable. So contact us and we can help you build that case as to why it is. Question hors sujet. Suite à l'entente avec l'employeur et PSAC pour le dédommagement Phoenix, est-ce qu'on va recevoir quelque chose pour égayer l'entente? Réponse rapide, oui. Je ne peux pas aller en détail présentement parce qu'il reste beaucoup de choses à négocier, mais juste pour clarifier, l'entente que PSAC a signée n'est pas la même que nous. Nous, est en fait meilleure. Elle est différente, mais je pourrais vous... En fait, on a une vidéo là-dessus qui explique la différence. Là. Envoyez-moi un courriel, je peux vous expliquer la différence. Mais oui, on est en train de négocier. Là, dès que l'Alliance de fonction publique, dès qu'ils ont ratifié l'entente, nous, on s'assoit à la table pour voir c'est quoi les différences monétaires, puis comment on va compenser nos membres. Donc oui, il va y avoir quelque chose qui s'en vient là-dessus, mais avant que ce soit réglé, là, je m'attends, écoute, minimum 6 mois. Là. All right, let's continue on, folks. I'll do this till 11:10, all right? Because I want to make sure I get through most of your questions. Actually, the more I clear, the more they come in. So that's good. We're engaging with you guys. As a manager, am I obligated to authorize compressed work hours if the employer is not fully busy or taking 699? Yeah, it's a good question. We actually had that question come up from one of our members. So if you're a manager, this type of question, you should ask your labor relations team and HR. So not ACFO, but I will answer it. Our position is that 699 doesn't change anything. If you're willing and able, and you are already on compressed, you should be able to continue on compressed, right? Compressed doesn't mean you're doing less hours. You do more hours and you take one off. So if you are denying your employee their compressed schedule, either because you don't feel they're busy enough or taking 699, I would build a case saying the opposite, that it's not the employee's fault. They're trying the most they can, and to punish them for not them having enough work, I would raise that with the employer and say, I'm sure there's other work we can give them if we show that capacity elsewhere. Because I can assure you, certain departments could definitely use help with certain of our members. So we can rearrange the workload there. Can we request a cell phone if we give a service to client? We don't feel comfortable giving our personal home numbers to others. Completely agree with you on this one. You have to be careful, friends. Using your personal cell phone, your personal email, I would argue even your personal equipment. I know we're doing this out of the goodness of our own heart, right? But you need to be able to disconnect the two. What happens when you use your cell phone, you could get ATIP'd. Don't get me wrong, they're not going to wiretap your line here. But if your numbers say, call Danny at this number, and someone makes an ATIP and says, how many people are calling this number in their email? And all of a sudden, your personal cell phone number is an ATIP request, might end up in the newspaper. What if someone forwards your personal cell phone number to someone you didn't authorize? And now they have your number and they're texting you during the weekend. So you definitely have a right to ask for a second cell phone. I will tell you right now, if the employer is not covering for the cost of your cell phone, they should, especially if they're asking you to use it. So if they can't cover the cost, then they should give you a phone. And especially if you don't feel comfortable, yes, ask for it. We've had members that have said, I cannot be reached because I don't have a phone. And the manager says, can I just use your cell phone? No. My cell phone is mine. It is personal. And I've been used way too often right now. And I don't want to use it for that reason. So the employer should provide you with a cell phone. The same thing when people couldn't access their emails of the network, they were forwarding stuff to Outlook and Gmail and Hotmail. But again, the problem there is once your email is in the government servers and it gets ATIP, and don't get me wrong, I know ATIP's a rare occasion, but you don't know what information might get leaked. Maybe your password got hacked into and you had confidential information. And all of a sudden the employer is saying, why did you leak information through Hotmail, right? It's not your fault, but I would draw a very fine line between personal and professional, and it's the employer's responsibility to provide you with the equipment you need to do your job. Continue on. For items reimbursed, are these items then Government of Canada assets and need to be returned to the department when changing departments? It depends on your department's policy on this. I would say, generally speaking, yes, these assets remain Government of Canada property for a few reasons. The first one is, if it's not, then it could become a taxable benefit, right? For example, you need a chair. Government says, here's a chair, keep it, it's yours. Okay, well, that's a taxable benefit now. Then now we change the dynamics, right? It could be, it's a reimbursed of expenditures when the asset belongs to the employer. That means if you change departments or for any reason, they could claw it back. And that's why I tell people, be careful. So when the employer tells you you're allowed a specific amount, for example, $200 for a chair, and you want to get a $300 chair. So you say, all right, you pay $200 and I'll cover $100. That chair belongs to the Government of Canada. So if they want to claw it back and you say, wait a second, all right, you want it back, fine, but I'm getting my $100 back. You won't. So you have to be careful. If you're going over and above what they're reimbursing, you lose that money. And you need to be aware of that. It's still a government asset because it's to maintain a non-taxable benefit. You want to make sure that it's government property. Earlier, you mentioned 699 was the last resort. If I can work 7.5 during a day between 6 and 6 p.m., how can I submit 699 at AM and claim overtime? Well, you could do that, right? It all depends on your situation. So say, for example, your coworker, your partner can, your partner works in the morning and you work in the afternoon. So during the morning, you have to take care of your kids till noon. So during the morning, you're on 699. And in the afternoon, your partner takes care of the kids, so now you can work. So then if your employer says, well, I need you to work more, and you want to claim overtime, well, then you tell them, look, I can't work in the morning because I'm not available. I work during the afternoon, but if you want me to work at night, that'll be overtime. And you would claim it. You just have that conversation. But you've got to be careful here, friends. It's not because you have a right to it that you can't be not sensitive to the optics of this, right? Is this overtime required, or is this something you could do the next day during your regular work hours, right? Because there's a lot of politics around this. You can see how people might conceive this as us double dipping, right? If you're doing it for legitimate reasons, that's fine. but you need to have that dialogue with your manager. And if you're having pushback, let us know. We can help you with that. All right, I'll take one question in English, and then I'll go with one question in French, the last ones. Employer has asked for note stating the child's condition, the risk, and that school safety measures are not sufficient to mitigate the risk. Is this necessary? Again, a great question. We're seeing more and more of this, where more questions are asked as to why you are required to take care of your kids. There's certain reasonable questions, right? First, you have to identify why the reason. I'm taking care of my kids. They are immunocompromised. There's no daycare. That's reasonable. But depending on what questions are being asked, so for example, requesting a medical note right now is not the case. You don't need one, and but the employer is pushing for this though. So if your manager is asking you for a medical note for this specifically, contact us, because this is the trend that we're seeing that we do not agree with, because we're going to have a lot of people going for the doctor's office for no reason. And even certain doctors have said, we're not providing medical notes for this. This is ridiculous. If we start doing this, it's never going to end, right? So this is a case of contact us. It's so important because we're going to see more of these. Joe, do you have one in French here somewhere? Okay, I see it. Thank you. All right, une question en français, dernière. Si nous ne sommes pas capables d'identifier les heures de dommages de Phoenix dans PeopleStaff, que faut-il faire? Car il y a une confusion avec nos vacances. De dommages. OK. J'imagine ici qu'on fait référence aux 5 journées de vacances qu'on a eues pour les dommages. Il n'y a pas de différence, en fait. Les 5 journées de vacances qu'on a reçues pour les dommages de Phoenix sont crédités à vos banques de vacances. Ils sont pareils. Ils peuvent être reportés, ils peuvent être encaissés, ils peuvent être pris. Donc, il n'y a aucune distinction entre les deux. Donc, la personne qui tente d'identifier les différentes journées, il faudrait que je comprenne pourquoi, peut-être que je manque de contexte. C'est peut-être parce que la personne veut voir si la banque a été créditée. Si c'est le cas, ben ça, il y a peut-être différentes façons. Là, mais au niveau de l'utilisation puis de la nature des journées, ils sont les mêmes. Friends, I got to wrap this up here, guys. I really got to go to my meeting. I'm late on this one. I want to thank you for all the questions. For all the questions we weren't able to answer, please email us at our labor relations. Joe, maybe we can show that again, how to email us. We want to make sure that we can answer your questions. I know I wasn't able to answer a lot of them, but I want you guys to know that we're working on this. We're working with the employer to ensure that 699 stays. The other unions are all on the same page. And the good news is that now that ACFO is the co-chair of the National Joint Council, it gives us a more power position. We have even more influence now. So we're in a good spot to raise awareness on this issue. So again, if you have questions, you go to our website like Joe is showing right now. You go to contact, top right, what he's saying. It's even a quicker way. He's such a brilliant man. He put an icon right there. So contact us. You click on that labor relations email. We have a team of lawyers willing and able to answer your questions. They are teleworking from many spots here in the NCR. So contact us. It was a pleasure doing this. I hope it was enjoyable for you guys. Stay safe. We will keep you apprised on our website. Si vous avez d'autres questions, rejoignez-nous par courriel. Merci beaucoup à tous. Au revoir. Bye-bye.